Vande Jagadguru. Hari Om to all of you. As we are going through this final section of the Gita, the third and final section of the Gita, from chapters 13 to 18, which deal exclusively with the path of Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge, we must just quickly remember or take a what we call a refresher look at the previous chapters. So as you recall, there are three parts which are mentioned in the Gita for every spiritual seeker to follow. The first part is Karma Yoga Sadhana, which was emphasized in the first 6 chapters of the Gita. Karma Yoga Sadhana is the path of selfless action, whereby we learn how to convert every action into what we call an offering to the Lord. So whatever action that we do, whether it is not only spiritual actions, coming to temples and all that, but every daily routine action also, if we invoke the Lord, surrender to the Lord, and consider ourselves as an instrument in the hands of the Lord, that karma action becomes karma yoga. It progresses us spiritually. It unites us with the Lord. So the first 6 chapters emphasized on karma yoga. The purpose of karma yoga was to remove the impurities from our mind, especially ego, because generally we perform all actions with the attitude that I am doing everything, I am the doer, everything is happening because of me. But when we change our attitude and surrender to the Lord and consider ourselves as an instrument in the hands of the Lord, that karma becomes karma yoga. Then in the middle 6 chapters, Shri Krishna spoke about bhakti yoga, devotion. So devotion, initially we start by praying to idols because we need to stabilize our mind. The purpose of prayers, rituals, etc. is because to control our monkey mind that likes to run around. So devotion, bhakti yoga helps us to stabilize, keep our thoughts fixed on the Lord. So initially you start, of course, with worshipping the Lord in a particular form, whichever deity. Then slowly you, what we call, increase your awareness to understand that Lord also is everywhere in this creation. He's in the sun, He's in the moon, He's in the stars, He's in the waters, etc. And then finally we come to the final and the third section of the Gita from chapters 13 to 18, which emphasize on Jnana Yoga, with path of knowledge. So what is Jnana Yoga? We started with chapter 13, and the key of this Jnana Yoga, the fundamental verse here, was given in verse 23 of chapter 13. So if you look at chapter 13, verse 23, that is the foundation there. What is this Jnana Yoga? Lord said, he who knows Purusha and Prakriti with its gunas. So that means knowledge of Jnana Yoga is to know Purusha. You should know what is Prakriti and what is the importance of the 3 gunas. Okay. So first of all, there are many technical terms used for this Purusha, Prakriti. There are many technical terms. We don't need to get confused. All we have to understand is that in this whole creation, and our body also is part of this creation, there are only 3 elements we need to understand. One is body, which is made of the 5 elements, including mind, intellect, etc. That is known as Prakriti. So Prakriti is matter, and it refers to this body, the mind, intellect, and everything in this creation that is subject to change. That's how we identify Prakriti. Matter is subject to change. Okay, whatever you take in this world will be subject to change, and it falls under Prakriti. So we should understand what is Prakriti. So if I analyze myself, I should know that my body is what? Prakriti or Purusha? Prakriti. My mind, Prakriti. My intellect, Prakriti. Rocks is Prakriti. Trees are Prakriti. Birds are Prakriti. Everything is nothing but Prakriti. Okay? That is the first knowledge. Second, he says, he who knows Purusha. Purusha is the consciousness that resides in Prakriti. So, everywhere where there is beings, there are creation, Purusha resides there, consciousness resides there. Also within our body also. It's also in rocks, in trees, in birds, in animals, everything Purusha is there. Right? Now, what is the difference between Prakriti and Purusha? Prakriti is constantly changing. Purusha is changeless. Prakriti is all pervading. Purusha is all pervading. Prakriti is only it's contained by a form. Okay? Purusha cannot be contained by a form. So, now the question is, the third element we need to know are the gunas, the three gunas, Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic, which will be discussed in chapter 14 in detail. But what we need to know now is, you have Prakriti, you have Purusha. Where are the three gunas? Are they in Prakriti or in Purusha? They are in Prakriti. We must remember that. So, the three gunas modify Prakriti. So, that's why you can have one person who is very calm, very relaxed, is very sattvic, likes to go to temples, hear bhajans and all this, read the scriptures. Another person is constantly very hyperactive, greedy, selfish, etc. Means rajas is there. Another person is given into what we call laziness, procrastination, etc. Very tamasic. So all of us have the three gunas. It's not that we don't have the tamasic guna, rajasic guna just because we come for spiritual classes. We have that. We have to be careful to cultivate our right gunas. So the more and more spiritual practices you do, the more and more your sattvic gunas get stronger. So there are many what you call sadhanas that you can practice to increase your sattvic gunas. The more and more selfish activities you do, greedy activities that you do, you will increase your rajasic gunas. And if you take to laziness, procrastination, you will increase your tamasic gunas. So now that we know the knowledge of the three gunas, the next question we ask ourselves is, what is the benefit of knowing this? Why should I know this? In what way will it benefit me? So the Lord gives us the answer also in verse 23. Even though engaged in action in every way, he is not reborn. There is no more reason for you to come back and take a subsequent birth. So you can see the glory of Jnana Yoga. That means what he's telling us here, a very important point. Can Karma Yoga take you to moksha? Huh? Can or cannot? Cannot. Can Bhakti Yoga take you to moksha? Cannot. Only Jnana Yoga can take you to moksha. So what is the purpose of doing karma and bhakti? Purpose is to purify your mind, to stabilize your mind and bring you to the path of to Jnana Yoga. And the same idea is also mentioned. I've sent to you today one verse in your notes. You can see it's from the Purusha Suktam, verse number 17. So Purusha Suktam is a hymn composed of 24 verses. It is found in the Rig Veda. Okay, although it does appear in different forms in the other three Vedas, but Purusha Suktam, Suktam means a hymn. Purusha means the supreme consciousness. Exactly the same word you see here in verse 23, Purusha. Okay, so it is a hymn dedicated to Purusha. And one of the most important verses in this hymn is this one which I've sent to you today. Tam eva vidvan amṛtam iha bhavati na anya panthah ayanaya vidyate. It says in the Purusha Suktam, a vidvan, meaning a realized soul, the one who's gone through the study of the scriptures and comes to understand what is Purusha, what is Prakriti, what are the three gunas. One who knows him, tam means him means the supreme consciousness. So supposing there is a person who has gone through the study of the scriptures and come to understand and identify with the supreme consciousness, what happens to this soul? He says, he bhavati, he becomes amṛtam, becomes immortal. Meaning, he doesn't have to take another birth again. He becomes immortal. And then this verse also says, na anya, I do not know of any other panthā, panthā means a path, except jnana yoga for ayanaya, for moksha. If anybody wants to attain moksha, the Purusha Suktam says, there is no other means to attain moksha except to know the supreme being, the supreme consciousness. And how can I know the supreme consciousness? It is through the path of jnana yoga. So the importance of jnana yoga must be understood very clearly here, right? Now, if jnana yoga therefore is the ultimate path that is going to take us to moksha, how do I proceed on this path? So the Lord has beautifully told us in verses 24 and 25 the different practices that will bring us to jnana yoga. The highest practice is, of course, he mentions here by meditation. That is the ultimate, the highest practice, meditation. So if you see in verse 24, he says, some by meditation behold the self in the self by the self. So don't get confused, so many selves there. What are all these? Not selfies, self. 3 selves are there. So what are all these selves? So first of all, behold in meditation when we sit down. Now, we must understand meditation can only be accomplished after you go through jnana yoga, because you must know what you are meditating on. If you have not gone through the knowledge of jnana yoga, if you don't know anything about Brahman, the supreme consciousness, when you sit down in meditation, you don't know what to meditate. So this meditation we are talking about is after going through the process of jnana yoga, understanding what is Brahman, and then sitting down in meditation to connect with that Brahman. So meditation to behold the self, the first self means the consciousness. So you connect with that self. Where does this self reside? Where does the Atman reside? It is said to reside in the second word, the second self with a small s. That self refers to the intellect. So it resides in the cave of the intellect. Now what happens is basically when the Atman comes into a body, it energizes first the intellect and the mind. When the mind and the intellect is energized, the whole body becomes energized. It is just like if you're boiling a pot of water, the water is in a vessel. You heat the vessel, you don't have to heat the water. When you heat the vessel, the water also starts boiling. In the same way, Atman first enlivens the intellect and the mind, and that in turn enlivens the whole body. So where does this Atman reside? In the cave of the intellect. It is said to reside in the guha. Guha means cave. And so in meditation, we sit and we connect with this highest consciousness. But of course, we will say it's very difficult. It's not easy. It's not meant for everybody. So the Lord, that's why he says, some by meditation behold the self by the self. Okay, what about the rest of us? What do we do? So then he gives us other sadhanas to practice. Others by the yoga of knowledge. So if you're not ready for meditation, you study the scriptures first. You stabilize your mind, you clear all your ignorance, clear all your doubts, you go through the path of jnana yoga. So for those who are not ready for meditation, practice reading the scriptures, listening to the scriptures, etc. Then you say, that also not easy, a bit difficult, what do I do? Then the Lord says, others by the yoga of action. Just do all your actions and surrender to the Lord. So there is an option for everybody. It's not that you just, only meditation is the only way to realize God. Slowly you have to prepare yourself through yoga of action, through jnana yoga, etc. Now, if you say all this is difficult, also difficult for me to convert my actions and surrender to the Lord, is there any other option? Then you look at verse number 25. So 25, what he says, the most easiest way to worship the Lord is how? Just by listening. That's all. All you have to do is listen. Listen to bhajans, listen to recitation of the mantras, listen to spiritual lectures, just listen. What is the benefit of listening? Listening, when you listen to pure words that come from the scriptures, words that are connected to God, they end up purifying our mind. And they slowly will bring us to the next level, next level, next level. So the most simplest thing you can do is just listen. Even if you don't understand the Sanskrit verses, you just listen, that's all. There is a lot of strength, there's a lot of purity in this Sanskrit text also. Okay. So the path of coming to meditation, we have to slowly work ourselves up. So here the Lord is explained to us, and we've gone through some of the verses after this until verse number 29. I think we stopped last week. Okay. So now the question is, the Lord is now summarizing that once you attain this level of consciousness, what is the attitude of such a person? How does this person interact with the world? Okay, how does he interact with the world? So here we will look now at verse number 30. Verse number 30. Okay. Now, when we go through this knowledge, we have to ask ourselves this question. And this is something we have to constantly remind ourselves. First question we need to ask ourselves, am I Purusha or am I Prakriti? This is something constantly we have to remind ourselves, because this is not very easy. Since the time we are born, we've always been identifying with this body, right? People know us by a name. I'm husband of so and so, I'm wife of so and so, I'm the manager of this company, I am what you call staff of this company. We are identified by various names of this body, but nobody realizes that actually and starts to question whether am I this body or am I the Purusha. So can we be both? Can we be Purusha and Prakriti? Can I be both Purusha and Prakriti? Huh? Can I? Purusha is eternal, is what we call eternal and indestructible, not changeable. Prakriti is subject to change. So can you be both? You cannot be changeable and non-changeable. You cannot be temporary and permanent. You have to be either or, isn't it? So you have to start questioning yourself whether I am the Purusha or I'm the Prakriti. Now, if I accept myself as this body and I perform all my actions considering myself to be this body, what happens? I get entangled in all my actions because there is ego, there is some expectation from my action because I am doing it, right? So when you have the expectations of your actions, you get entangled in your actions, then there is always sukha, dukkha, there is happiness, there is pain, there is gain, there is loss, there is victory, there's defeat. And because of this, you have to constantly keep on taking another birth, another birth. But if you say, I am Purusha, then what is the identity of Purusha? If I say I'm this body, I know my identity, what's my name, etc., what's my job function, I know. But if I say I'm Purusha, then how do I remind myself, who is this Purusha? What is the characteristics of this Purusha? So for that, we go back to verse number 22. What is this Purusha exactly? What is the role of the Purusha? Which we have to keep on reminding ourselves. What is this role I'm playing now? Verse number 22. The Purusha in this body is said to be the weakness, the guide, the sustainer, the experiencer, the great Lord, and the Supreme Self. That is the Purusha. That is our real identity. That is who we are. So, if we keep on remembering this verse, that we are just the weakness, we are not the doer, we are just the weakness, then what happens to your mind? So, you just observe your mind. Today, if you do any action and you are able to consider yourself as the weakness to all your action, just study the nature, the condition of your mind. You don't get disturbed anymore by the outcome of your actions. You don't get entangled in your actions because you always separate yourself away from all the actions. So this is something we have to slowly work on. It's not easy. It's very easy to read and what we call recite it, but not very easy to practice. But this is what the scriptures are telling us. So if you claim that you are Atma, then what happens? The weakness. So he tells us how does such a person live. Okay. And if you look at, yes, yes. Uh, True. You see, the Purusha is consciousness. It is alive. So it can experience. But the difference is this. The body experiences and gets entangled. It gets affected. The Purusha experiences and remains neutral. Because the Purusha, you must understand, its consciousness is not something dead, it can experience. So it experiences, but it does not get affected by the experiences. It remains neutral. Does the Purusha in the evolution of the soul? Not at all. The Purusha does not get at all, and what you call, does not get affected or even control any of your actions, or does not determine how you progress. Whether you progress or don't progress depends on what? Depends on your individual effort, not on the Purusha. Because don't forget, you say Purusha is only the weakness. He does not get entangled in your action. He does not motivate your actions also. So if we look at verse number 29, before we go into verse 30, if you look at the fourth line of the Sanskrit text, you see the word akartaram. So kartara means I am the doer. I am the doer. Karta, I am the doer. When you put the in front of the kartaram, it becomes the non-doer. That means you are not responsible for any action. The body is performing actions guided by the gunas. The Purusha is a mere weakness. So understanding this, then we go on to the next verse. And this also is a very interesting episode in the life of Adi Sankaracharya. How many of you have heard the Atma Shatakam? How many of you have heard? None of you have heard? Atma Shatakam? Oh, you have heard. Okay, good. Go into YouTube, just key in Atma Shatakam, hear the beautiful recitation. Now I'll tell you how it came about first. It's a very interesting story. So, Shatakam means 6 verses. Okay, very short recitation, composed by Adi Sankaracharya. 6 verses on what? On Atma, that means on the self. Okay, and how did this come about, this composition? When Adi Sankaracharya, as a very young boy, at the age of 17, I think, he left his home and went in search of spirituality, of religion, etc. And he was seeking a guru. And he met the first meeting with his guru. The name of his guru is Govindapada. So he meets him for the first time. And of course, when you surrender to the guru, the first question the guru will ask you is, who are you? The purpose of the guru asking, who are you, means I want to know your name, your family, your father's name, your reputation, your background. But Adi Sankaracharya, when he was asked by his guru this question, who are you? On the spot, he composes Atma Shatakam. Now, what is in Atma Shatakam? Every verse ends with one line. The same line in all the 6 verses it ends. The last line of every verse is Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So the Guru is asking him, who are you? He's saying, Aham, I am. Chid Ananda. Chid means consciousness. I am consciousness. I am Ananda. I am bliss. Shivoham. Shivo here means auspiciousness. So who am I? I am not this body. I am not this. One of the interesting verses is, he says, Name mrityu. I have no fear of death. Why I have no fear of death? Because the soul is never born. How can it die? So I have no fear of death. Name jati beda. I have no caste. I have no creed. Pita naiva. I have no father. Because I have never taken birth. The soul doesn't take birth. So how can I have a father? Name mata. I don't have mother. Na janma. I have never taken any birth at all. Na bandhu. I don't have a relative. Na mitram, I don't have any friend because everybody is my friend. The soul is friend to everybody. Na guru, I am nobody's guru. And at the same time, na shishya, I am nobody's disciple. Then the Guru says, who are you? Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivo. Every verse he repeats the same thing. Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am consciousness. I am Ananda, bliss. I am auspiciousness. So this is the state that he was already in already, but still he accepted Govindapada as his guru and by tradition, and he just followed that. So when we come to such a stage, how do we interact, how we live, how do we live in this world? So now that brings us to the verse number 30. Okay, here Krishna is going on to describe that person, that individual who has reached this state of consciousness. How does he interact with the world? He says, Yada anupashyati. So again, this word pashyati is a very interesting word. Pashyati generally means to see with our what do you call, our physical eyes. Okay, but when you put the word anu, the prefix anu, anu, it means to understand through logic, to understand through your knowledge. So yada, when this realized soul anupashyati, he looks upon the creation, but because of his highest level of understanding and consciousness, he sees prithak bhuta. Prithak bhuta means many types of creations in this world, right? We see birds, insects, plants, human beings also, different sizes, shapes, colors, etc. Right? When this person looks upon the creation, the bhavam, the state of the creation, he does not see the difference in the creation. He does not see a person's height, color, what you call this, whether male or female, whether there is a bird or there is a tree. What does he see? He sees ekatam. He only sees the consciousness that is residing everywhere. Now, when we say see, obviously you cannot see consciousness. He understands that there is divinity residing everywhere. Okay. So that's why when you bow down to somebody, like when we see a great sage has come and we bow down to them and we say what we call namaste, what are we bowing down to? The sage is there, but what are we bowing down to? The divinity, the purity that exists within that sage. We are not bowing down to that person as a gross body. We are recognizing that purity, that divinity that exists. So this person, he does not only just see this divinity residing in one or two persons, he sees that same divinity equally residing everywhere. So that is that realization that although what there is diversity in creation, but this divine person only sees divinity everywhere. Just like an example is given by Adi Sankaracharya, a goldsmith sees ornaments. ornaments of different sizes, shapes, colors, necklace, ring, bangle, etc. But what does the goldsmith, when he sees the ornaments, what is he actually looking at? He's looking at the purity of the gold. He recognizes the purity of the gold. In the same way, a potter looking at the varieties of pots made of clay, to him what is only important is the existence of the clay. That is what he is seeing. So in the same way, a realized soul only sees that one divinity existing everywhere. Now, what is the greatest advantage if you are able to do this? What is the greatest advantage? If you can see that divinity residing everywhere. What is the greatest advantage? Huh? Not only, okay, you can never get hurt, but more important, yeah, if you see everybody as oneness, what is the greatest advantage? What is the greatest benefit to you? If you can see that divinity residing everywhere, will you get angry with that person? Will you get offended by that person? Because you see everybody is divine. So no matter what that person tells you, no matter what that person behaves with you, you cannot get angry because you're only seeing that one divinity everywhere. But this does not mean that that person does something to you, you say, okay, you're divine, I accept you as divine. No. You see, there's a difference between that seeing divinity and protecting yourself from harm. There's a difference, okay? Right? What do we mean by that? Learn to separate the person from the action. To the action, give the appropriate response. To the person, you give only love. So we don't have to hate the divinity inside, but to the action, we give the appropriate reaction. And Adi Sankaracharya explained also so beautifully to help us to understand this, that he said, think about sandalwood. The nature of sandalwood is to give fragrance, isn't it? Sandalwood always gives wonderful fragrance. But if you keep the sandalwood out in the environment and it rains, then on top of the sandalwood forms a layer of moss. And what is the nature of moss? It gives a very foul smell. So, sandalwood covered by moss gives a foul smell, but that is not the nature of sandalwood. So, we have to understand that intrinsically everybody is pure, but there is a layer of covering of sattvic, rajasic, tamasic that makes the person impure. So, we have to understand and separate that. To the person, give your love. To the action, give the appropriate response. That is very important to understand. So, the best benefit we can have is we won't get upset, angry, and we won't differentiate people. I like that person, I don't like this person, or this person, you don't separate creation, you look at everybody as one. Secondly, he says, Vistaram, all these manifestations that are there in the creation, the jnani recognizes that everything has come from that one source. So, not only did Lord create the creation, but He is also in the creation also. These two things are very important to understand. Let us look at chapter 18, verse 46 to understand this. Chapter 18, verse number 46. Page 3 to 4. Page 3 to 4, chapter 18, verse 46. He from whom all beings emanate and by whom all this is pervaded. So not only the whole creation came from him, the Lord brought forward this whole creation, but he is also in the creation. So both the created world and the presence of the Lord, he is there also. And this follows the law of creation. The effect is always in the cause is always in the effect. Example, if wood is the cause of a table, where is wood? If wood is the cause of the table, where is wood? in the table, right? If gold is the cause of ornaments, where is gold? In the ornaments. If God is the cause of this world, where is God? In the world. He is in this creation. So not only he created it, but he also enters into the creation also. So what happens to such a person who is able to live his life or her life in such a way, seeing that one divinity everywhere? He concludes in this verse by saying, Tadha, then Sampadyate Brahman. One identifies with Brahman. One accepts identity with that Brahman. What is Brahman? Satchit Ananda. What is my nature? Satchit Ananda. I identify myself as the same nature as Brahman also. Okay. And in the Mundaka Upanishad, there is a very beautiful, very popular line that is often quoted, often repeated in the Mundaka Upanishad. Brahmavid Brahmeva Bhavati. Brahmavid. Vid means the knower. Brahmavid means knower of Brahman. Bhavati becomes Brahman. Brahmavid Brahmeva Bhavati. If you know Brahman, you identify with Brahman, you become the very nature of Brahman. So we have to constantly reflect on this thought of whether we are the Prakriti or whether we are the Purusha also. Then we move on to the next verse 31. Okay. So here, if we recall in verse number 29, Krishna said, all actions are done by Prakriti. So keep this very important thought in your mind. Actions are done by Prakriti means actions are done by the body with the what we call assistance of the three gunas. So all actions are being performed by this body, by this mind, backed by the three gunas. As long as we understand, I am not this body, I am not the gunas, I am just a witness to all the actions. So what happens to such a person? He says, so this person sees that Supreme Self who is ayanaya. Ayanaya means immutable, not subject to birth, growth, modification, decay. So we identify with these qualities. Then there is no fear of death also. Once we come to identify that we are the soul, we have not taken birth, neither are we subject to death at all. So avyaya and anaditvan means without a beginning. You have no date of birth. Actually, you don't have to celebrate your birthday because you have no date of birth. Because you are not born, you are not dying. So don't celebrate birthday. So that doesn't mean that. You just understand that in reality, actually, you don't have a date of birth also. And nirgunatvat means you don't have any attributes. Atman doesn't have a shape, a size, a color, etc. And therefore, where does this Atman reside? Sarirashta. It resides in the body, right? It does not get affected. The body goes through all changes, but it does not get affected. And the next important thing mentioned here, na karoti. This Atman, this consciousness does not act, does not perform any actions. Okay? So it is not the cause of your actions. Atman does not determine, as what the sister asked, does Atman determine your actions? Not at all. It will not influence your actions. At the same time, another important point about Atman in this verse, na lipyate, it does not get affected. Whatever happens to this body, to this mind, the Atman does not get affected at all. So now, Atman does not cause you, or God doesn't cause you to act, neither does God get affected. Yet, why is it we say in the scriptures, they say everything happens because of God. God is doing everything. Why do we say that? Have you heard that? Right? They say nothing happens without the, what they say, without the will of the Lord. Nothing happens without the will of the Lord. That means if it is the Lord that seems to be doing everything. But yet this verse is saying that consciousness does not act and does not get affected by your actions. It does not act. So why do we say this, that everything happens at the will of the Lord? What is the purpose of making such a statement? Have you heard this? You've heard this before, right? Everything happens at the will of the Lord. So we have to understand one thing. It's good to have this attitude in the sense that everything that is happening in my life is God's will. If He gives me something good, okay. If He takes away something from me, it's okay. It's all right. But the question is, this is good for our initial spiritual path. When we are starting out on the spiritual path, this is good reinforcement. But when we come to the highest knowledge, we understand that all this which is good and bad which is happening is because of what? Huh? Because of my own past actions, isn't it? It is not because God is rewarding me or punishing me. It is because of my own past actions that I am enjoying or suffering. Now, once I come to this understanding, what is the most important thing that can happen to me now? If I come to this understanding that I am enjoying or suffering now because of my own past actions, how will it affect me? What is the greatest benefit to me? You control your own present actions. So you can determine your future. You can plant the seeds for your future if you understand that you are the master of your actions. You are in total control of what happens in the future. So from now onwards, you are very careful about your actions. And that is called agami karma, what you're doing from now onwards. So it's a different change in attitude, how you look at your actions. So here he says that, yes. Huh, huh, huh. No, faith is there, but that faith is not because of God. It is because of your own action, right? So we cannot blame God and say, because these good things happening, I thank God, fair enough. But bad things also happen, then we say it is God's doing. That is not correct, because we understand whatever is happening is because of our own actions. Is not correct in the way, yeah, it's not correct in a way. So we should understand and take responsibility for our actions also. Therefore, we will correct ourselves. You see, otherwise we will never correct. We'll say everything God. So that is like a defeatist attitude, everything I leave it to God, everything I no, you are responsible for your actions. Yes. Huh. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Correct. Correct. Right. Yes, correct. We worship him to get his guidance, number one. Yeah. But he does not dictate or determine. Huh? Yeah, yeah. If you take that attitude that I'm looking for his guidance so that I remain on the path, on the right path, number one. Number two, I also worship him because there are times when I go through troubled times, I need his support. I need his, his grace, So if we come to that understanding, fair enough. Then you can say God willing with that understanding, right? But don't think that when we say God willing means that he is determining the outcome of your life. He doesn't determine the outcome of your life. Very clearly stated here, and some other verses are there also in the Gita also, right? So take responsibility for your own actions also. So now, to attain this higher state of understanding, a seeker may have to go through a few stages. It's not straight away we come to this understanding, I'm Atman. And you all come to understanding, next week nobody come for class. Aham Brahma Asmi, Aham Atma Asmi. So we have to go through a few stages. What are the stages? First stage, before I have any knowledge of all these scriptures and all, what do I say? I am this body. I only accept the existence of this body. I don't even think about Atman, consciousness and all this. I just say I'm the body. That's it. My knowledge ends there. Then, as I receive some knowledge, I come to the second stage, and then I say, I am this body which has Atma. I come to the second understanding now. I know something about Atma, is consciousness, but I don't accept that I am Atma. I say, I am this body which has Atma. And as I contemplate more and more and more and get established in this in this knowledge, then I say, I am Atma which has this temporary body. Now the attitude changes already. First you say, I am this body which has Atma. Now you say, I am Atma which has this temporary body or is residing in this temporary body. And finally you come to the fourth stage when you say, Atma in me is the Atma which is residing in that entire creation, is one and the same. That is the highest understanding that we can come to. So through the path of knowledge, we have to come step by step to this situation. So now we look at verse number 32. Okay. Now, here Krishna is concluding his discussion about this Atman, this consciousness. And once again, he compares, for us to understand what is this Atma, he compares it to what we call Akasha. Akasha means space, basically space. Akasha means space. So if we understand the qualities of space, we will understand the qualities of Atman also. And in today's notes also, I've sent you what are the qualities of space which are same as Atman. So if you look at today's notes, the first quality of space is called Ekatvam. Ekatvam means there is only one space. Okay, there's not like two spaces or three spaces. We are only dividing spaces by putting walls, but in reality, there's only one space. The space inside and the space outside is one and the same, right? So in the same way, although Atman is in different bodies, in reality, how many Atmas are there? Huh? One. There's only one Atma. Okay. So same we identify with space, we also understand Atma is one. Second quality of space, Sarvagataha. It is all pervading. Space is everywhere, right? So is Atman. Atman is also Sarvagataha. Third quality, Achalatvam. Achalatvam means space cannot move from one place to another. You cannot move because space is everywhere. So you cannot move it from one space to the other. Similarly, Atman also cannot be moved from one place to another. Next quality, Nirvikaraha. Nirvikaraha means not subject to modification. Space remains as it is. It cannot be modified. It does not decay. It does not perish. Okay. So is Atman. Next quality, Akhandatvam. Akhandatvam means you cannot divide space. You cannot split space into different compartments or into different, different shapes or sizes and all that. Space remains as one. So it cannot be divided. Asangatvam. And the last one is Sarva Adharatvam, which means space supports everything in this creation. Everything is supported by space. The same way Atman or consciousness supports this whole creation also. So here now the Lord says the same thing. Yatha, meaning just as Akasham. Akasham means space. Is Sarvagatam. It is all pervading. Space is everywhere. It is outside. It is inside. It's outside our body. It's inside our body. It's outside this room. It is inside this room. Everywhere it is there. And although space comes into contact with everything, yet what is that one quality of space? Na upalipyate. It does not get tainted. It does not get affected. Meaning, if you burn fire here and there is smoke, the smoke cannot taint the space. It remains taintless. Okay. If there is fragrance in this air, it does not taint the space. It remains untainted. In the same way, and if you can look at the quality of the soul was beautifully given in the earlier chapter. Go back to chapter 2, verse 23. Chapter 2, verse 23. Page 35. Page 35. So there the Lord said, he was describing what is the soul, what is Atman. And he says that the soul, weapons cannot cut it. You cannot cut the soul with weapons. Similarly, you can't cut space with a weapon. Cannot take a knife and cut space. Atman is like that. Nor fire burn it. Fire cannot burn the Atman, neither can fire burn the space. Water cannot drench it. So again, all the qualities of the soul and the space are similar. Now, so he says in the na lipyate, it does not get affected. Why is this? Why is it so that space and the soul cannot get affected? So he gives the quality there, saukshmyat. Saukshmyat word means sukshma, which means it is very subtle. It's very subtle. We cannot experience space with our bare eyes. You can see fire, you can see water, you can see earth, but you literally cannot actually see space. Okay, so that's why when the time comes for the what we call not the soul to leave the body, but when the what we call the subtle body to leave, right, at the time of death, we cannot see it because it's so subtle. You cannot see it leaving the body, but it goes. Okay, so the Lord says, tatha, in the same way, if you understand the nature of space, in the same way, atma, the consciousness, you see, the way the scriptures explain things, if you look at the first line of the Sanskrit text, you see yatha. You look at the last line of the Sanskrit text, you see tatha. So just as, so is this thing. Okay? Yatha, just as you understand space, tatha atma, the Atman, the consciousness, is also sarvatra. It is also everywhere. It resides everywhere. Okay? And it is dehe. It is also outside and inside the body. And at the same time, na upalipyate. It does not get tainted. It does not get affected. Body goes through changes. Soul remains the same. Mind gets all you kind of emotions. The soul remains the same. It does not get affected. Now, very important question. If space and Atma are the same in terms of quality, why can't we just say space is Atma? Isn't it? If space has all the qualities of Atma, why not we just simply say space is Atma, space is consciousness? Huh? Yes, it's no doubt one of the five elements, but it has all the same qualities as Atma. So why don't we just say space is Atma? You say so much description you give me, why not you just say space is Atma, make it shortcut and finish it? Huh? Why is it not Purusha? Yes. Huh? Space is everywhere. No, space is every. Space is in Atma, but Atma is not in space. No, the reason is space is inert. It has got no life. It is part of the five elements. The five elements have got no life. Whereas Atma is consciousness. It has got life. So no doubt space has got all the same qualities as Atma, yet we cannot say space is Atma because space has got no life. It is inert. Okay. So that's why we cannot call it Purusha. It has got no consciousness. Okay. So that is the reason. Okay. Now we come to verse 33. I'll try to complete this chapter 13 so that we can start with chapter 14 next week. Okay. Now, verse 32, he compared Atma with space. Now in verse 33, he's going to compare Atma with the second best example is the sun or any illumination. So this is what we say. Space has got no consciousness, has got no life, but Atman has got life. So now he gives the example of space, of light. And just like if you look at light and Atman, similar qualities are there. Number one, sun is also one, ekam. There's only one sun. There are not hundreds of suns. So same way, Atman is only one. Sunlight also does not get tainted. If sunlight shines on a pond of pure water or dirty water, you can see the reflection of the sun in a dirty pond, but the sun does not get tainted. It's only the water that remains dirty. Okay? And sunlight is indivisible. You cannot cut sunlight into pieces. In the same way, Atman also cannot be divided. So some of the qualities are same. So again, the same terminology is used, yatha, just as now here the sun is identified as the word Ravi. You can look at the second line of the Sanskrit text. So Ravi means sun. Okay. So yatha Ravi is eka. It is only one. There is only one sun in this world. And what does the sun do? Prakashayati. It illumines. Imam Krishnam Lokam, this whole world, that one sun illumines everywhere and everything. Okay. Tatha, in the same way, same language is used now. Tatha, in the same way. Now here, the Lord uses the word, you can see the word Shetri. If you look at the third line of the Sanskrit text, there is a word called Shetri. This word Shetri is to reflect the consciousness. So this word Shetri means the consciousness or the knower of the field. So in the same way, like the sun shines in every corner of the world, this consciousness, prakashayati, it also illumines Krishnam, the entire what? Kshetram, matter. So everywhere where there's matter, there is body, there's objects, everywhere this consciousness illumines everything. It gives life to everything in the same way. So he now has given us a second example of comparing consciousness with light also. And finally now he summarizes all the teachings here of this chapter in verse number 34. So he wants to say, ye, meaning those who are the wise people, the one who study the scriptures, who have absorbed this knowledge, and they come to vidur, they come to know this entire thing. What is matter? What is consciousness? What are the three gunas? And how do we know all this? Because they are all very subtle, right? So very one important word is used here. Jnana chakshu. Very, very interesting word. You see in the second line of the Sanskrit text. Jnana chakshu. Jnana is what? Knowledge. Chakshu is what? The eyes of knowledge. So he's saying, one who comes to know this by how? By the eye of wisdom. Now, where is this eye of wisdom? What is this eye of wisdom? It is not the two eyes that you're seeing, because you cannot see consciousness with your two eyes. You cannot understand all this knowledge with your two eyes. So what is this jnana chakshu, this eye of wisdom, is what we call as the third eye, which means it is your intellect, your inner wisdom. Okay. So very important here is telling us that you have to use this, you have to exercise it. It's just like muscle. They say if you don't use the muscle dies. So our problem is we don't exercise the intellect. We don't read the scriptures. We don't think. We don't reflect. So this is very important for us, not only to read, but keep on reflecting, making notes, asking questions. That way we will slowly clear our ignorance. Not just reading, coming and listening and just forgetting about it. So jnana chakshu, we must exercise this jnana chakshu. Just like the example I gave you last week, I think, we see the fan turning. The fan is turning because of what? Because of electricity. But we cannot see electricity. But how do we know that the electricity is turning the fan? Is through the knowledge. It's because of knowledge. I know that the fan is turning because of electricity. I don't have to see electricity. I don't have to put my finger there and see whether there's electricity, right? So it's through the eye of knowledge that I understand all this. Similarly, the scriptures, we have to go through a dedicated, systematic study of the scriptures under the guidance of a qualified guru to understand this. So what should we understand? He's summarizing this. What is the knowledge that we should understand? He says antaram. Antaram means you should understand the distinction between kshetra, matter, kshetrajna, consciousness. What should you know? Matter is changing, it is temporary. Consciousness is permanent, it is eternal, non-changing. So we should try to understand and the difference between these two. Okay, what are the differences between consciousness and matter? And he says also, those who know this, prakatim moksham, the path of liberation, that's a path of liberation. So this knowledge is our gateway to moksha. If we understand this knowledge, apply this knowledge in our lives, live as the Atman and not this body, that is the gateway to moksha. So he's summarizing us this whole topic. And how do we cultivate this knowledge? The most important thing we have to understand, how to cultivate this knowledge, we first have to cultivate the 20 virtues. What are the 20 virtues? He gave us in the very beginning of this chapter 13, verses 7 to 11. So there are 20 qualities which we need to cultivate. The more and more of these qualities we have, the easier we'll find it to go on this path of knowledge. We'll be able to grasp this knowledge very well. Okay. So 7 to 11, please go back, look at these virtues, and you should start ticking what you have and what you need to cultivate also. And when you understand this knowledge, the differentiation between matter and consciousness, the Lord gives us a promise, yanti, te yanti, they, the realized souls, they will reach param, the supreme destination. They will attain moksha. So knowledge is our gateway to moksha. That is finally what Lord has concluded in verse number 34. Okay. So we'll end here and come back next week and carry on with, start with chapter 40. Okay. And with the prayer. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru. Thank you. Hari Om.